Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ashley and I'm an architect in Ontario. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing the programs and softwares that I use as an architect on a daily basis. So if you're interested to get some insight on the programs that I use on a daily basis as an architect in Ontario, in Canada, then stay tuned and let's get started. So before we get started, I wanted to preface that depending on what you specialize in architecture, so for example, if you are a spec writer, you don't need to know all of the programs that I'm going to be sharing today. However, I do work on the front end of projects all the way to construction drawings. So I work on concept design, design development, and at times also in construction documents. So of course, my breadth knowledge in programs is a lot greater than someone that would specialize in, for example, spec writing. So I'm going to share the programs that I use. So number one, Adobe Creative Suite. Now, this would be one of my bread and butter programs that I use on a daily basis. And this would include Illustrator. For illustrations and diagramming, I really heavily use Illustrator on a daily basis. I also use InDesign, and InDesign is great for presentations and depending on the type of presentation it is. And I also use it for creating booklets. So if I am creating a booklet, I would also use InDesign, and it's a great tool for that. To edit images, I use Photoshop, and Photoshop of course is a great tool to edit images, to edit renderings, or if you are looking to create a collage or merging a rendering with a photorealistic photo, you can do that in Photoshop, overlaying your render onto a photorealistic photo. And of course, you can do all sorts of special effects with Photoshop on your images, blurring, and so on. I also use Adobe Premiere Pro for animation. So when I am putting together an animation for a project and we need to add things like music or text and effects and so on, then I would use Adobe Premiere Pro to do that. And of course, the last program that I use in the Creative Adobe suite is After Effects. Now, I don't use this one as much. I've started to get into After Effects as well to elevate the animation, video creations, and so on. Number two, Miro. Now, this is one of the recent softwares that I've been getting into, I don't know if it's more of an app per se, but I've been getting into Miro and I love it. It's a great software. It's great for brainstorming ideas, laying out your presentation boards. I like it a lot more than PowerPoint. And it's a great collaborative tool. So it's great because you can collaborate with consultants, you can collaborate with team members, you can also collaborate with your client. So the collaboration item to Premiere is awesome. So you can work at the same time. It highlights the changes that each team member does, so that when you do log in, you can see what were the updates that were done by that particular teammate. It's great for collaborative. It's also great for brainstorming. If you are doing design workshops, it's a great tool. I highly recommend it. If you don't know it yet, then take a minute to learn it. It doesn't take very long to learn. It honestly took me a minute or two. It wasn't too bad, and it's a great tool, and the graphics are really well put together as well. There's some great opportunities. You can even diagram in the program if you choose to. Of course, it's nothing like Illustrator, which has a lot more options that you can do, and of course the graphic quality of diagrams done in Illustrator cannot be compared to Miro. But if you need something quick, it is a great tool, and the graphics are still nice. They're still good. Of course, not at the level of Illustrator, which is a dedicated program for a specific task, but it's still pretty awesome. I would check it out if you are interested. Number three, Revit. Now, this is a big one. And if you don't know Revit, I highly recommend learning Revit. It's a big software and program and tool to learn in the industry today. It's a really important tool to learn. If you don't know it, I would take some time to get to know it. And I find that when I started getting into Revit, I didn't find the learning curve to be too bad. And that's because I already knew a lot of 3D softwares and a lot of other software, so I didn't find it too bad. But I have noticed with some people, if they don't know any other 3D software, because it is, in comparison to AutoCAD, you have to think in 3D. So it might be a little bit challenging, but don't be discouraged. Take the time to learn it. It's worth your time. And because there's a huge advantage to know Revit, especially if you're seeking for employment at the moment. So I would take the time to learn it. It gives you an advantage to your peers if you do know Revit. And now Revit is great not just for 3D modeling, it's great for drawing documentation, to create schedules, areas, and so on. It's a great program, and if you do have a minute, also learn Dynamo, which is a plugin where you can start to get into parametric design and so on. So I would definitely recommend going in that direction. If you know Revit, then I would definitely recommend getting to know Dynamo and get started, because it's worth the time in learning the software. Number 4, 3D modeling software. So I've batched these all together because they're all 3D modeling softwares that I use. So 1 is SketchUp, and then 2 is Rhino. I really love Rhino. It's a great program. And then to add to Rhino, there's a bunch of plugins, well, similar to SketchUp. There's a bunch of plugins that you can use. So one of them for Rhino is Grasshopper. I'd highly recommend getting to know Grasshopper because it does streamline the process, even if you don't want to do parametric design, even to simply model some basic items but do it very quickly and efficiently. I would recommend doing and getting to know Grasshopper. Of course, within Grasshopper, there's additional plugins that you can use. And one of them is, for example, energy modeling. There's plugins that you can use within Grasshopper for energy modeling and so on. So I would recommend spending some time to get to know it. It's not in high demand now, but soon it will become, and it also makes it a lot faster to model and efficient as well. And then of course you can get into parametric modeling. Number 5, Enscape. Enscape is an animation tool, and also it renders still images, and it's pretty great. I love how quickly you can produce images and animations on a dime, and the quality of the graphics is really good, and you can really quickly just output images, which a lot of times when you're putting together presentations, you don't have a lot of time because you're designing and you want to spend more time on putting together the design and the building, and not spend that much time on the presentation itself, but of course still maintain a high quality. Well, Enscape really allows you to quickly export images while still maintaining a high quality of rendering and graphic quality. So I'd highly recommend getting to know it. It doesn't take long. If you watch a few tutorials or you just download it on your machine and start playing around, you'll get a sense of it. It's a quick tool to generate images and animations. And of course, once you export a video, you can take that into a video editing software like Adobe Premiere to add music and text and so on. Number 6, Vray. Now Vray is a rendering tool as well, and it's a plugin that you can use in Rhino, I believe also in Revit. I haven't used it yet in Revit, but I did use it quite a bit in Rhino, and also in SketchUp you can use it as well. And it's a great tool to render as well, but it does take a bit longer in comparison to Enscape. To render, it may take 30 minutes to an hour, so it's not as quick as Enscape is, but it does have a nice quality to it. I would also use Vray for diagram renderings. When I wanted to give a bit more depth to the renderings itself, I would render it through Vray. Now, because now I've been using Enscape, I haven't been using Vray as much, but if there is a specific drawing or a specific look that I'm looking for, I would use Vray. But it does take a bit more time to output images and rendering with Vray in comparison to Enscape. Number 7, Microsoft Office Suite. So of course this is on the list because I do use this quite often. I use Word documents, Excel sheets, and also PowerPoint itself. I have been using other project management tools, which I'm not going to get into in this particular video, but stay tuned because I'm going to be talking about some of the project management tools that I've been using to just manage projects and also my time, and also assign tasks and create task lists and so on. So I'm going to be sharing some of those tools on a later video, so stay tuned for that. Number 8, communication tools. And of course, you need to communicate on a daily basis. And now that everything has gone virtual because of what's going on around the world, this has been heavily used at a time like this. And some of the tools that I use is Slack, Skype, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. So those are the main communication tools, and of course email as well, Outlook. On a daily basis, those are the main tools that I use for communication purposes. Number 9, AutoCAD. AutoCAD is used still quite a bit in the industry despite the demand for Revit. It's still used in the industry, and it's used for more of a 2D documentation of buildings, so 2D drawings, elevations, plans, sections, and so on. I even use it at times to create even diagrams. So those are the 8 main programs and softwares that I use as an architect on a daily basis. So those are the main programs that I use, and of course on another video I'm going to be sharing the project management tools and other design apps that I also use on a daily basis to create digital sketches and so on. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. And of course, if you're getting value out of the video, make sure to like the video, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Until then, bye!